All right, I'm back from vacation. Let's get another news video out there. I'm sure things have started to turn around. We've got NVIDIA raising RTX Pro 6000 Blackwell prices to $16,000, now 87% above original MSRP. We've got NVIDIA's RTX 5060 Ti 16GB median pricing up to $805, 88% above its launch MSRP. And some people are going completely insane and playing old school Runescape for over 4,000 hours just to max out their fishing skill in the worst way possible. So nobody's losing their mind at all in PC gaming. Everything's fine. Okay, honestly, guys, I wish I had better news for you, but I'm bringing you the news either way. All sources will be in the video description as usual. Let's get some information here, whether it's good information or bad, at least it is what is happening. Now, let's talk a little bit more about this 5060 Ti median pricing for the 16GB model hitting $805. Now, I found this at WCCF Tech. It looks like they're sourcing this information from this Tom's Hardware article, and their methodology is looking specifically at Newegg pricing, so limiting it to one retailer, but then looking at the median price for each model. So they would look at, for example, every RTX 5050 model sold on Newegg, line up those models' pricing from least to greatest and find the middle one, and then compare that from month to month. Now, this is different than the methodology I used in my last video looking at GPU pricing, because I tend to focus on the lowest price available and at a wide variety of retailers using PC Part Picker to sort prices low to high at a variety of retailers. So this is a different data set than what I did in my video 3 or 4 days ago. But they're both tracking the same thing, just using different methodology with pros and cons to each. One nice thing with median pricing is that it can be resistant to outliers, both as a flash sale deal on a specifically good model, or also just something that's priced at some unreasonable level that nobody would ever purchase. However, it also can be affected where when you're looking at median pricing, if there are a lot of super expensive models listed that there's no reason to buy, and there is a model priced at a significantly lower price, you could just buy that one. This also doesn't really monitor that. So while my methodology I like to use personally looks at the lowest possible price, because I'm like, if I was a person trying to buy a GPU right now that was value conscious and I want the best deal I can currently get, even in a bad market, if there is a model in stock at a certain price, you could get it for that price. So I like to look at the lowest price, but tracking median pricing as far as looking at the month-to-month changes could be a little bit more stable and less affected by individual outliers. So both options have pros and cons for how to look at it. But either way, this is another data set backing up that prices have gone up significantly over the last few months. I was also looking at July to August. This is going June to August. But still, they're seeing the RTX 5050, and they're looking specifically at Newegg, has median price jump from $300 to $315, so up only 5%, but remember the MSRP is $250. The 5060 pricing, MSRP 300, was already up to 370 in June and is now up to 470 by median pricing. So median pricing jumped 27% despite already being well above MSRP. 5060 Ti 8GB jumping from 470 median in June to 530. That's a 13% jump. 5060 Ti 16GB jumped from 570, which was already extremely high, up to 805. That's a 39% jump. Now, this can be one of the places where using median pricing can have another bit of an issue, which is if the 16GB models are not in supply on a wide variety of models available, sometimes you only have a few models available and they are at super high pricing. That's one thing where the median pricing can get you a little bit, but either way, the 16GB models have gone up significantly in price. So looking at a 39% jump there since June. 5070 going from 660 up to 900. That's a 36% jump on median pricing. Remember the 5070's MSRP, I believe, was 550. It's hard to even remember at this point. The 5070 Ti, which had an MSRP at 750 and at some times last year was available at that price, has stayed flat at a median pricing of $1,100 to still being at $1,100, both of which just significantly higher than MSRP already. 5080 was already way over MSRP in June. MSRP is $1,000. It was at $1,462 in June and is now at $1,500, so only a 3% increase. It's just that it's already like 50% over MSRP. And the 5090, which had an MSRP of $2,000, was already well over double the MSRP at $4,300 in June, is now at $4,700 by median pricing. That is a 9% increase. So everything's gone up by median pricing as well as by lowest price available. So more data sets to show the same thing. Prices have gotten significantly worse over the summer. Now, trying to look at any sort of good news, if you're trying to save money on a PC build, you might look at how SSD prices have gone insane and wonder, should I buy a less advanced SSD, right? So there's PCIe 3.0, 4.0, and 5.0. Does it actually matter for your frame rate when you're playing games? Tom's Hardware recently tested this. Again, all my sources in the video description. I'm not going to show you all of their graphs or games tested, but the general summary is any of the PCIe 3.0, 4.0, or 5.0 got the same FPS numbers when you're actually playing a game. Now, that doesn't mean there couldn't be differences in the load times for games, or if you're looking at like the quality of an SSD, like the number of writes it can survive, its longevity, that kind of thing. Those can all matter, but if you're just looking at frame rates in games, any PCIe 3.0, 4.0, or 5.0 drive seems to deliver the same results, and even a SATA SSD only affected the performance negatively in 2 of the 11 games that they tested. So interesting results there, and potentially good news if you're trying to save some money on an SSD. And MSRP pricing for GPUs has gotten so unheard of now that it's literally a attraction at QuakeCon. So basically, MSRP is such a complete myth now that it's actually like a PR stunt to offer MSRP 50 series cards. That's absolutely crazy. So apparently that was the case August 6th and 9th. There was a Geforce booth where you could get a Founders Edition 5090, 5080, or 5070 at MSRP. I doubt supplies lasted very long, but it was at least a thing you could do. Now, AMD GPU pricing also seems to have been going up. I did track that in my last video, looking again using the lowest price available for any particular model. But we're seeing some Chinese like board partners, the back channel stuff. So this I found at videocards.com, but they're getting it from Channelgate. Channelgate reporting on the board partners, etc. So it's not supposed to be publicly facing information, but word gets around that AMD models in China Q3. The suggested e-tail price, SEP, is now listed significantly higher. This is in RMB, because this is China, and that's not US dollars or anything. So you're like, 9070 XTs are $7,000? No, 7,000 RMB. But that's up 1,400 RMB from 5,599 MSRP. And so you can see that tracked here. So again, further signs that it's both big GPU vendors are raising prices. And while monitors have remained one of the best deals in the current PC landscape for pricing, with components going up and up and up, monitors have continued to progress technology and generally bring prices down. However, AOC has now announced that they've raised monitor pricing, at least in China, starting in August, claiming that it's due to upstream components such as chips and motherboards having priced increase. So with their higher raw material costs, they're having to increase pricing some amount. It doesn't seem like they listed a specific amount for specific models and said it will vary depending on the specific product, but it's looking like monitors, at least from AOC, will be hit, at least in the China region, Hopefully we don't see big jumps, and hopefully this doesn't be a trend among all sorts of monitor makers and all of that. But if AOC is seeing component cost increases, I'm sure most others will as well. But monitors still do seem to be a bright spot in the other component landscape, where a monitor can make a big difference on your PC gaming experience. Even if you're getting the same resolution and frame rate, having just better color accuracy, response times, things like that. A lot of things have come. Quality has improved while prices have come down over the last few years, unlike many other things. So, now another thing increasing prices of PCs, this one specifically for like system integrator PCs, pre-builts, is that apparently Microsoft has increased Windows licensing fees more than they typically do this year. Apparently a PC brand executive, so maybe not willing to go on record as what PC brand, but has stated that Microsoft increases licensing fees for Windows OEMs, so device manufacturers like pre-builts, laptops, etc. They increase it every year. However, in the past, licensing fees mostly increased by single digits each year, but starting in July this year, the average increase has reached 7% to 10%, which is apparently a significant increase compared to previous years. One other slightly interesting tidbit I got out of this article, which I wasn't aware of, is that apparently Microsoft charges different OS pricing to OEMs based on the CPU that's installed with the system. So like in Intel Core i3, i5, or i7 would have different licensing fees for the Windows install. Which is interesting to me. I had no idea that was the case. But this also further bugs me when I see a lot of gaming PC pre-builts way overbilled on the CPU compared to the GPU. If that's also increasing their Windows license fee, it makes it even more egregious that they kind of misbalance that that aspect of the build, in my opinion, if you're trying to get the most gaming performance for the money. Now, if the state of Windows is depressing, you could be considering moving to Linux. Now, there's being continual work being done to make Linux a better and better gaming environment, which is really, really cool to see. So it looks like Heroic Games Launcher developers are putting in a lot of work to get the Xbox PC app purchases and Game Pass games working on Linux. Now, it looks like they still have a lot of work to go on this. This isn't up and running yet, but it does look like they already have a lot of related things up and running. So, I don't know. It looks like a lot of progress is being made, even if it is not complete yet at this time. And I just continue to enjoy seeing Linux become a better and better gaming operating system to put some pressure on Microsoft. And like I said, I play on my Steam Deck quite a bit, and there's a lot I really like about the Steam OS there. So in other Linux gaming operating system news, we have CachyOS. With their August 2026 release, apparently has improved handheld detection. So if you're installing it on a handheld, it's now better at reading certain component IDs and figuring out that it's probably being installed on a handheld, which helps with the overall situation there. And I was trying to look for any sort of positive PC hardware pricing information or news for today's video, and I at least have this. So Intel's Core Ultra 270K and 250K Plus CPUs have had prices come down below MSRP again. They'd been down below it for a while, then it kind of jumped back up as Intel announced price increases across its lineup. But it's looking like for their Gamer Days bundle, they have also lowered the price. So I don't know if this will be permanent or temporary, but currently the 270K and 250K Plus are available below MSRP and are bundled with Tomb Raider, I think it's the Legacy of Atlantis. Yeah, Legacy of Atlantis and Star Wars Galactic Racer. Now, I'm gonna be honest, the little bit I've seen, I haven't paid a huge amount of attention of Star Wars Galactic Racer, video showcases and stuff. Looks kind of interesting to me. I don't know, so I might try that one out. We'll see. But the point is, if you're actually interested in those games, that could increase the value on offer here. Apparently, the bundle is running from August 10th through September 13th. So if you are looking to build a PC and also were interested in those games, that could help you out. But if you weren't interested in those games, doesn't really help you too much. So there it is. And really the issue with the PC component pricing isn't the CPUs right now. It's the RAM that you'd have to use when you build the system. Looks like AMD's 7800X3D and 9800X3D have also had pricing drop a little bit around the same time, perhaps to compete. But there's that if you are looking to build a PC. Now, if you're feeling like building PCs is becoming so unaffordable that they're trying to price you out and move you into cloud gaming, which seems to be one of the popular thought processes in PC comments, building comment sections, etc., the Take-Two CEO apparently seems to agree. Now, his thought is apparently that, from his perspective, the question is, will selling video games become difficult if the hardware to play video games on becomes ever more expensive and people can't afford it? And one of his responses to that type of question was that he doesn't worry about that because low latency cloud gaming advancements will 10x their installed base within 3 years, so it doesn't matter, people will just be able to play it on cloud, which is the kind of mindset that a lot of PC gamers are scared of, is that this is actually what companies are pushing for behind the scenes. Now, I'm less on the side of things where I think that there's some plot to force people into cloud gaming, so much as it's that companies are trying to make a bunch of money on data centers, which is really more focusing on AI, and it's more that the PC gamers are just an afterthought that's being just priced out of existence due to the fact that they can just make so much more money in the AI data center build out. So I don't think it's so much a coordinated strategy targeting PC gamers to try to force them into cloud gaming, so much as it is we're just an afterthought in the business models of AMD and NVIDIA right now, because they can make so much money on other people. And as a byproduct, it could be the case that cloud gaming could end up expanding its user base, but I really don't think that the more hardcore PC gamer type audience is that interested in moving to something like cloud gaming, even if it does have a lot of advancements. I think in reality, it could just become more of a richer person type hobby. I think in general, the silver lining attempt to take on the hardware getting more expensive could be that maybe game developers will have to focus more on optimization. Even as we move into the next console generation, if they're more expensive, then the cross-gen period for games will probably have to be pretty extended. So if you have games that can play, PCs that can play PS5 games, but almost every PS6 game has to also run on PS5 because there won't be enough of a user base to support just releasing on PS6, it could be the case that your hardware lasts you a lot longer than it used to. Rather than forcing people into cloud gaming, it might just mean that you just stay on older hardware for longer, which has some silver linings to it financially, even if there's also the take on, well, maybe we're not seeing as much advancements in what games could be, etc. So there's pros and cons to that, but that's more of my take on the situation. Now, if you are looking at cloud gaming, this was kind of an interesting headline, where apparently some modders have taken advantage of something that they could do with Trove, which is apparently a free-to-play MMO that runs on Geforce NOW. And by moving things around behind the scenes, I don't fully understand all of the details and how they're doing it. They're able to bypass launching, get out of the game and get into a Windows desktop environment, which does allow you to do a lot of things that you can do with a normal just Windows desktop environment, not just limited to playing that game. You can actually run certain programs, etc. So it seems pretty interesting. Now, also though, I think this does violate NVIDIA's GeForce NOW terms of service. So I don't know if they'd eventually just start banning people, or more likely just patching this out or something like that. But that's certainly interesting that people were able to do that. But it also further highlights that things like Geforce Now are not the same as having your own gaming PC, right? Like the fact that you would have to have modders find some crazy way to even get you into a desktop environment, shows you the huge difference there is between having your own gaming PC that you can do whatever you want with versus subscribing to a gaming PC over the cloud, which isn't even really fully the same as having access to a gaming PC. Now, like I said, with the talk on maybe game optimization will become an increasing focus here as somewhat of a silver lining, we're actually seeing Bethesda finally respond to the Elder Scrolls Oblivion Remastered lack of patching. So there were a couple patches right after launch, and the game was heavily criticized by myself and others for its poor PC performance and optimization. There were a couple patches that didn't really help with anything, and then nothing for the last year. Apparently, they have now responded that based on their work for the Nintendo Switch 2 version, there could be an incoming patch to further optimize the game. Specifically, they've said, "We've heard your feedback asking for an additional patch for Oblivion Remastered. The Nintendo Switch 2 version of the game has a number of optimizations that we are looking into bringing to other platforms, and we will share more when we are able." So I think this is good news for people hoping for increased performance in the Oblivion remaster, because it had seemed like it was just abandoned, going a year without a patch despite all the complaints about performance. Now, whether this patch will actually do much for performance is another question, but at least something is apparently in the works. And again, this need to optimize games to run on less powerful consoles with the Nintendo Switch 2 could continue to benefit the optimization for games going well into the future. Because if game developers are trying to launch multi-platform games that have to run on a Nintendo Switch 2, even if they also target like a PlayStation 6 in the near future, that could be interesting to see how scalable games could be to still run on the older hardware. Now, another game that's been criticized for its performance optimization, although this one's a recent launch, is Marvel Tokon. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I don't know how that symbol is supposed to affect pronunciation, but anyway. Fighting Souls. Now, this launched very recently on PC, and I was not able to test it myself. But I've seen a lot of comments on my channel asking me to take a look at it when it launched, because apparently it was in really bad state on PC with tons of performance drops. Now, I still haven't had a chance to look at it myself, but apparently there has been a patch now to help with all sorts of things. Some of these just seem like kind of inexcusable for being in the case when the game shipped initially. Apparently, some of the frame drops were tied to checking for available audio inputs unnecessarily during gameplay, causing frame drops and performance drops, and that's now addressed, among other things. Apparently, setting certain resolutions and things like that would drop performance. Seems like there were all sorts of pretty bad issues with this that are apparently fixed with this patch. Now, that doesn't mean everything was fixed, and I don't have any before gameplay, testing to test if this has fixed those things. So I'm actually interested in my comment section right now, if you've been playing this game before and after this patch, is the game in pretty good state now, or is this still worth me looking into? Now, just honestly, from a content creator standpoint, if it's this far after a game has launched, it's hard for me to justify spending hours and hours and hours taking a look at the performance testing, especially for a game that doesn't seem to be like massively popular on PC. So I'm not sure whether it would make sense for me to put in a huge amount of time and effort to do a video that would likely not be of huge interest to my audience. So let me know in the comments section. If this seemed to mostly fix it, then I'll definitely not really worry about it. But if it's still in pretty bad shape, if I'm running out of other topics to cover, it could be something I could look into, despite probably not being worth it from a time invested standpoint. Could still be interesting. Let me know. Now, a game I did test out recently was Beast of Reincarnation, and while its overall performance, like average FPS, wasn't actually too concerning, it did have a lot of, technical issues or just lack of polish. One of the things I criticized was that there was an old version of DLSS and FSR 3 rather than 4 support at launch. I haven't tested it again recently. I've been actually out on vacation for several days. But apparently, according to headlines, we now have FSR 4 and DLSS 4.5 in the game, which is nice. Hopefully, it no longer defaults to running FSR 1.0 every time you start the game, because it was doing that at launch when I tested it. That was one of my most heavily criticized aspects, and it was also rather stuttery, but apparently they're at least making some efforts to patch some of the issues that people have been complaining about. Now, my main issue is I tried playing the game a little bit further beyond my performance testing section, and I just wasn't that interested in it. It wasn't bad, but it also just didn't hold my attention enough to come anywhere near finishing the game. I actually did start replaying Dark Souls 3 a little bit, ended up also getting back into Divinity Original Sin 2, which I had played through a bunch of a long time ago, and then somehow ended up playing something else and never actually finished. So I'm getting back to finishing Divinity Original Sin 2, as well as making some progress on a Dark Souls 3 replay. So I was interested seeing the headline that there's some work being done on a path tracing mode for Dark Souls 3. Now, this is modding rather than any sort of official work. I did look at some of the gameplay video of the developer working on this, and it certainly is an interesting take. Like, the lighting can be very dramatic now, especially, but that means it is having to have some work done to make it playable. Because when you're relying on actual light sources for the lighting, as opposed to some more fake game lighting as the game was actually developed with, you get into areas like this, which are so dark that it doesn't match up to the original intention for this area, where you actually can see enemies, etc. Now, it looks like the developer of this mod is taking the time and effort to find these types of areas and add in additional light sources so that you can actually see a little bit of what's happening here. Although I could imagine it being kind of fun to have to play through areas that are way darker than originally intended. You'll be ambushed a lot more, realistically, I guess, in those sorts of areas. But this also highlights one of the things where with the whole move towards ray tracing years ago now, and the discussion around whether this was something that would be adopted on a widespread basis, one of the big discussion points was that it would, in the end, save developers time, because if you can rely on entirely ray traced lighting, then you don't have to go through and hand place lights so much, and you don't have to take the time of baking things, etc. So there's some advantage to that. However, what we've ended up seeing is very few games only support ray tracing, in which case most games that do have ray tracing support also have non-RT modes. So then it feels like developers kind of have to do things twice, or pick which mode they want to kind of focus on, and one sort of suffers, compared to the other, where if the RT mode is the primary way of playing the game, then sometimes the non-RT version looks worse than games that were developed just with no RT mode at all. But then sometimes you get games that focus on the non-RT version as their main lead development, and then the RT mode feels kind of like what you're seeing here, where the lighting might be more realistic, but sometimes you wonder if it's matching the developer's intent, because maybe this area of this game in Dark Souls 3 realistically should be this dark, but if you look at the actual game as it shipped, it isn't, so that wasn't the artist's intention. So then if you're trying to get the RT mode to look correct, you then have to add in additional light sources and do additional work to get the RT mode. I think you guys see where I'm kind of saying with this, because it's also one of the thoughts I have around NVIDIA's showcase of DLSS 5 at SIGGRAPH, that I was highlighting there, where it's like, okay, so now you have another way the game can look different than what the artists originally designed, which does allow some developer control to tweak it, but that's now another thing developers have to do. So it's like, I don't know, it feels like having to split developer resources quite a bit in an age where game development is getting very expensive. So I don't know, just some kind of musings on that. Now, in other uplifting news, Framework confirms data breach exposed customer addresses and phone numbers. And Valve warns European Steam hardware buyers that their addresses leaked after shipping partner CEVA got hit by a cyber attack. So I guess it's at least as uplifting as the rest of our news today. Now, in all seriousness, if you were hit by one of these, first of all, they've been notifying people, so you probably know if you've been hit. And just my general advice on when this is the type of information that leaks, it's not your actual like payment details or passwords, but it's things like your full name, street address, postal code, city, country, phone number, email address, like the same one linked to your Steam account in this case, if it's the Valve leak, or the type and price of the ordered product. What this kind of makes you susceptible to is more advanced phishing scams, where it could be a lot easier for a scammer to pretend they're Valve, for example, because they have like the product that you ordered, the email address you ordered it from, your actual ship address, your phone number, all of that kind of information can make it easier for them to pose as Valve, to then try to find some way of either getting other information out of you or money from you, saying that maybe you owe a little bit more money on this shipping, something changed, all sorts of ways they could target you. So that's what I think you really have to watch out for when this type of information leaks. But anyway, I really wish I had better news for you guys today. I do always try to find any potential good news or silver linings or anything I can report. But it does feel like that's getting to be fewer and farther between. Just try not to let that drive you to the complete levels of depression and insanity that must have gone into this old school RuneScape player's ambitious project that he has finally completed. Anyway, I hope you guys still managed to have an excellent day.